Hello guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today what we can talk about is very simple beginner's video tutorial on KnockoutJs JavaScript library. Recently I have been writing a lot of code into KnockoutJs, that's why I have decided to share some of the knowledge that I have acquired with you guys. So, remember, this is going to be the very basic beginner's tutorial, and as the video progresses, we'll be covering the very advanced topic. So we'll writing code from the scratch. Okay, I'm not going to spend that much about myself. My name is Siba Adhikari, and as a profession, I'm a software engineer, and then I love writing code. That's what I do. So anyway, if you would like to contact me, this is my or subscribe to me. Here is my YouTube handle right here. Anyway, thank you so much, bro. A lot of people, have been lately subscribing to my video tutorial. Thank you so much for it, guys. I really appreciate it. Anyway, let's go into the code. Okay, that's what we are here for, to learn something. Okay, today what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a Visual Studio 2015 as editor. Like I said, you don't really have to use Visual Studio. You can you can use any simple editor, any kind of editor like Sublime or Code from Microsoft, or maybe a lot of people even you can, if you want, it's going to be strictly HTML, JavaScript, and CSS code. If you want, you can write code into a notepad. It's totally up to you. So I have a Visual Studio solution here. I'm going to add a new empty project. Okay, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to add a new project here. Um, Let me close something here. Okay. Into this solution, I'm going to add a new website. It's going to be empty ASP.NET website. That means it doesn't have all the template Visual Studio automatically generates for us. So it's going to be empty one. And I'm going to give it a name as tutorial on KnockoutJs. Okay, now we have a project here created. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a couple of folders here. I'm going to add a folder called HTML. We'll have all our HTML residing into that folder. And I'm also going to go ahead and add a JavaScript folder here. Oh, that is not what I mean to do. I just want to, okay, go ahead and delete that one. And I want to add a new folder. Okay, it's a JavaScript folder. And in case if we need, I would also like to have a folder called CSS. All our CSS, as you guess now, the convention that I'm going to use, all our HTML will be going into this HTML folder. CSS goes here, and it's a JavaScript. Okay, let's go ahead. What we're going to develop here is very simple contact information, contact form. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add new HTML page. I'm going to call it contact information in Knockout. Okay. I'm gonna have the same name. I'm gonna create a new file here, a JavaScript file, and then I'm gonna give the same name, .js. Okay. All I did is I just have a HTML form here, and then corresponding JavaScript in the JavaScript folder. In here, of course, up to now I have not downloaded all the libraries that I need. Very first thing I'm going to do, I definitely need a Jquery here. I will tell you the reason why I need it. I'm going to go into here and then ask NuGet Package Manager to load a Jquery. I'm going to browse here. I want to say go ahead and download the Jquery for me. Oh. Okay, here is the latest version of Jquery. Go ahead and download into my project. Okay, it created a new folder for us called script and downloaded all the things that it needs. And let's go ahead and download the KnockoutJs library also. Okay, that is what our video tutorial is about. So I'm going to go Knockout here, KnockoutJs. All right, here is the first thing. This is the library. This is what we're going to talk about. So I'm going to go ahead and download this file here. This library into our project. I'm asking Visual Studio to install that library also. Okay, that is all we need to download in terms of external libraries. As you can see right now here, we have a Jquery, and then of course we have Knockout here, and then we have our corresponding JavaScript file. So very first thing I would start with is since we'll be using the minified version of the Jquery, I'm going to go ahead and drag that JavaScript, the Jquery library, and also I need a Knockout here. And also, of course, I also need my custom JavaScript file here. So I'm going to load these 3 files. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to write any JavaScript into this HTML page. All our JavaScript will be here. Okay. So now I have a basic structure of the JavaScript, HTMLs, and I don't want to typing. I don't want you guys to see wasting your time just by typing HTML. So I have some code snippet of HTML that I want to have. So here is my I already typed it. I'm just going to put my HTML right here. Okay, let me just show you what that HTML looks like in the browser. I'm going to set this file as a starting page in Visual Studio, and I'm going to run it in a Google browser, Google Chrome browser here. This is what it looks like here. It has a first name, it has a last name, email, and then it has a button to submit this information and send the data back to the server. Of course, in this case, we don't have all full-fledged server yet, but this is going to be our starting point, okay? Let's see how we can take advantage of KnockoutJs to what KnockoutJs library basically help us to do. Okay, so corresponding to this form, this HTML structure, I'm going to go ahead and define my JavaScript model. I'm going to go in here in our JavaScript file, and then I'm going to write self-executing anonymous function here. This guy takes Jquery as an input parameter, okay? And I'm going to invoke that guy. So this is our IFE, self-executing anonymous function. And then all our models and everything goes in here. So let's define a variable. Whenever we're writing the code in KnockoutJs, the convention is to BM and whatever your name is, but it's totally up to you. But I try to follow the convention. Contact. Let's define an object, JavaScript literal object, as contact info. And as you might have guessed by now, it will have 3 properties. It will have 3 properties corresponding to our form. So we'll have a first name property right now is set to empty string, and we'll have a last name and also set to empty string, and finally we'll have an email here to capture those email into the form. Okay, so once we define our contact info, then we can say, all right, and even before, usually what I do if I'm writing the code in Visual Studio, I would like to drag the libraries that I will be using into my source code like that. So what this allows me to do is basically it provides me the IntelliSense whenever I'm writing code into this, somewhere else, not into the HTML page, but the individual JavaScript file. So now what I can do, I can come in here, I will say, hey, Knockout. Now we have to associate our view model. In this case, the name of our view model is BM contact info with our HTML, with our KnockoutJs library. So to do that, I'm going to call this method here and pass my view model. In this case, BM contact info. Okay. So that is all we have to do. Let's see what happens if I run this right now. Well, even before to see something, what I would like to have here, first name as a John, and let's give a value this guy as a John Doe, and maybe some hard-coded email, something like that, right? This is email. Okay, now we have our view model defined. Now let's try to associate this view model into our HTML by using something called binding. In Knockout, it is called binding. Okay, let's go back into our HTML, and here is our first input type to capture the data input. So there is some attribute called data bind. This is valid attribute called data bind. It's a part of the Knockout, but the thing about this one is it's a HTML compliant. A lot of browsers, they don't really complain, because if this attribute, if you are using in the latest browser, they automatically figure it out. Oh, okay, what this one is. But anything that is data dash for the HTML5, browser doesn't complain. Maybe some older browser might complain, but if they might encounter the attribute, but basically ignore. Okay. So there is a bunch of something called bindings. The first binding that we're going to use here is a value binding for our input text box, something called value. So what we're going to do, so basically we're going to associate the binding with our view model. Our view model has a property called first name. The Visual Studio, because of the way we have it laid out, it automatically figures out, oh, okay, you are trying to associate with a property called first name right here. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this one and see what kind of output we get here. I was expecting to have that John display into this text box. For some reason, there was an issue. There is a JavaScript error. Let's figure it out, what's going on. Here, go into developer tools. We definitely have error here. So this is very common error. I know maybe perhaps the people who have been coding in JavaScript might have been figured this out, what cause of it. Let's look into it. So in this code right here, so that the error is basically saying, hey, when it was loading and parsing, it couldn't find those DOM offset, because it was executing this piece of code before loading the DOM. So we're gonna wrap this code into Jquery's DOM radio. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this code. So this piece of code would be executed only after the DOM JavaScript document object have been completely loaded. Document object model is completely loaded. So I'm going to cut it and paste it right here. Okay. Now if I refresh this page now, as you can see right here, John is available. JavaScript John property is now bound to our text box. Okay. So at this point, you might be saying, okay, if that is all this library can do, I mean, we can write code with Jquery. But of course, this is just the one-way binding, right? From model, we had a property and we had value on our model. It's just bound by just this declarative magic. By the way, this way of programming is called declarative programming. This is the trend this day. This is how we used to do for when in a server side, but we can do the same thing in JavaScript by basically providing additional attribute to our existing HTML tag. So in this case, we use data bind attribute, and then we use value binding with a property called first name defined into our object called BM contact info, our view model object called BM contact info. Let's do exactly the same thing for the other three properties. Here, of course, in this last name, we're going to bind the last name here. And then into the email, we're just going to bind the email. Okay, so by doing that, of course, the hard-coded values of those properties should be visible to our HTML. Okay, now let's look at, because like there is something, now we have to understand the concept about two-way binding, meaning like if your view, in this case, view means our HTML, for example, if this changes, something like that, our view models should also be able to change. To be able to do that, of course, we have to do some knockout stuff. Okay, let's go into. So instead of writing like this, like first name, so what we're gonna do now, we're gonna make this property a two-way binding. Make it in a two-way binding enabled. So to do that, we can do something like knockout. It has the method called observable, and then into it, we don't have to say like John. We're gonna set it to empty string because I was just trying to show you how to do just a one-way binding in a KnockoutJs. Okay, this is like for the single for the scalar property, meaning it is not like collection like array object. It's just a single value. It's the first name, last name. This is how we define. This is how we make it observable. And then, of course, once and it's the same idea. And then we call this method apply binding and I'll pass our view models. To see that one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some HTML here. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to come in here and then add div container here and define some span tag. Okay. So let's do a binding here. We look at the value binding. This one we're going to do something called text binding. So the idea about text binding, this is another binding that the KnockoutJs by default provides. We will see later on how to write our custom binding also, but right now we're just going to use all built-in binding provided by the library by default. So basically behind the scene, the text binding, like whenever you are basically it is using inner HTML property of the JavaScript to bind the text. Or some browsers do not support inner HTML. Maybe they use a inner text property or whatever. So using the library, you don't have to worry about those kind of issue, the JavaScript issue, JavaScript incompatibility issue. Okay. So here we're gonna do the same thing. First name. We have a two span tag and let's bind all those properties here. Here's the last name and then here is the email of the person. Okay. Let's wrap this view into the s2 tag. Okay, so here's our view. See, as you can see right here, as you change, even one more thing we can do here is that there is a, you can actually see that your view model also changing. Let's write this little piece of code. You can see it's really powerful. So let's include that piece of code here. I have that code somewhere defined here, so we can okay. I'm going to grab that piece of code and right here. So as you can see, these are the right here. This is a new thing that we just added. This is our view model. This view model basically contains first name, last name, and email. And as we type here, this property, but we are missing one more thing, because like even if I type here something, but it is not changing right away. But if I have to like hover over, once I my mouse hover over from there, it is visible. To be able to do that, there is one more binding that we have to do to our text box here. Okay, so here's our input text box. Let's say if you like to include additional binding, you want to separate by comma, just the JavaScript. So on this value update, there is some built-in event, so you can pass like on key down. I think this is one of them. There is 3 or 4 of those you can use based on your situation, how you want it to be done. So let's see what happens once we add this additional binding here into to our text box. Here I type something. Well, must be my syntax on key down, value update on key down. Let me make sure my syntax is okay. On key press, value update. This is what I have different events, so that's why. Okay, so on value update, we're gonna key press event. We're gonna subscribe to the key press event on value update. So here, just look into the first one. As I type, as you can see, my my span tag also got updated. At the same time, my view model right here, it changed. That is very cool. So let's do exactly the same thing for all of our properties. So we can see, right now, because I haven't that event subscribed to it, so it doesn't fire that event because it has to come out from that event, from that mouse over. Basically, come out from here. Okay, so let's go ahead and add this binding to all our text box here. Like I said, each attribute has to be separated by a comma right here, just like JavaScript. Well, it's basically a JavaScript. Okay, now all of them should start working. I'm going to go ahead and refresh. I type something, it's going to change. Well, actually, let's type some real name. John, Doe, Doe, email. Not only our view, along with our view, our model also changed right here. See, as you can see, those changes are reflected right away. So this is our first name with the name John. This is the last name Doe, and here is the email. Okay, in today, very first, last thing we're gonna do in today's video tutorial, we're gonna subscribe event handler. So basically, we're gonna click. When we click, basically we'll have our data post so we can do with whatever with our data. Maybe we're gonna save that data into back in database or whatever. Okay, that's the basic. We can apply a click event to this button called submit contact information. Let's go into our code. So here is our button. to this button, we're going to apply a data bind. We're going to use another built-in event, the binding called click, provided by KnockoutJs. Let's say save contact information. Of course, this method doesn't exist into our view model. Let's go ahead and add it. Okay, so we're going to come in here, and here is our PM contact info, and here is we're going to add a method to it. So just for now, I just want to show you guys. I'm going to just do console log BM contact info. It has a property called first name. This is very important concept that you have to understand. Even though we declare this as a property, but when we want to read the value, we need to call this one as a method. That's why we have these two parentheses right here. That's how the KnockoutJS works. For example, if I want to set some value to this, I'm going to pass value to it. If I want to read something, I just call. That is how the jQuery also works. Like if you call, anything that val, if you give a value, you're going to say the value to a text box or whatever, and if you do .val function or method from the jQuery, it reads the value. Kind of like the same idea. So let's just log out these 3 pieces of information when the button gets clicked. Here's the last name, and here's the email. Okay, let's see if this one works. Let's give some name here, John M, and this email jm@gmail. And then I'm going to open here. I'm going to go into console, and as you can see right here, John, it printed out M, our data. Let's change something here, and then as you can see, this data changed. Okay, that is all we're going to talk about today's video tutorial. This is going to be a very fast tutorial on KnockoutJS. We will be we'll be going through the bunch of video tutorial and go through a more complicated one as we progress. Okay, thank you so much guys for watching this video. I really appreciate it.